All right, guys, I think today we're going to go over MarketCarpets. I guess from the poll that not a lot of people are aware of MarketCarpets or have seen them. So we'll go ahead and do a little bit of a presentation on that, show everybody how they work, how to find them. There's different modes. We've got the public groups such as the S&P 500, the Canadian S&P, and a number of other ones, as well as your own chart lists. And we'll go through all the features, and there's a whole bucket load of dials and switches to play with. So we'll go through all of those, and then we'll just cover some of the metrics that we can track on the market carpet. So I'll head over to our control center here, over our extra control center, your pro control center. You can scroll down and select our market carpets. And you can see from the beginning there, we've got a whole bunch of colors and different sizes of boxes, and we've got different segments within the box. This is a market carpet of the S&P 500. So you can see these large roped off areas here are the individual sectors. You can hover over a particular item. It will show you that the percentage gain in price over the time period, as well as the percentage gain of its sector. So you can see that we've got technology, all the 9 sectors here. Over on the right side, we've got sort of a mini chart of each individual item. If you click on an item, it'll change the mini chart. We've got a list of the top 5 in terms of percentage and the bottom 5 in percentage. And you can see over here, when we're not hovering over them, you can see the -1, -3. A bunch of our gainers over the last couple of days have been in energy. Interesting. We've got the ability to go see another chart, one of our familiar charts, such as a point and figure, the perf chart, or the sharp chart. We've got our date control that's similar to the perf charts and the seasonality. So we can take our chart time period here and drag it through time and see what changes. And we can also expand the time. The default time is 2 days, which I find is a little bit narrow. So I often like to drag this out to maybe say a month, about 20 days. So that gives us kind of an idea of what's been going on over the last month in these areas. And you can then scroll through these time periods. And what it does is market carpets are also seen or known as heat maps or performance maps. So you can very quickly get an idea, in this case of here, the S&P 500, of which sectors are doing relatively well and which ones aren't. I mean, here, obviously, utilities over the time period from mid-December, late December to January, clearly was an outlier, not performing very well at all when everybody else was pretty much doing okay. And you can see as we move on, we're starting to hit a rough patch here. Everybody's down in this mid-January to mid-February time frame. And then we've started to come back, had some good periods there, and now we're sort of mixed. So it's an easy way to take a look at a whole bunch of stocks and kind of get a feel for how well they're doing in the aggregate. As you can see, we've got our floating little dialogue there. We right-click on this, and we get all sorts of options. We can do an animation, which basically does what I just did, but automatically scrolls through the whole time period. And we'll repeat. We can hide this little info box if we find that a little bit annoying. We can also make it fixed over here in the bottom area, so it's in one place. As we scroll over, you can see the symbol. But if you'd like to see them all, you can turn them on in mass. You'll find that with these larger groups, there's 500 here, certain options, when you turn them on, will get very visually busy. So you just kind of have to decide how much noise you can tolerate there. If we don't want the bottom 5, they will turn off there. That means the numbers here. You can see the 5s, -3, -4. We can toggle those on and off if we don't care about them. By default, you'll notice the squares are different sizes. Their sizes are based on market cap. So we're going to have the big guys taking up most of the space, Amazon, Berkshire, Boeing, Apple, and then you get down to the little tiny guys, and you'll hear all sorts of companies that you may or may not ever heard of. Those are all, again, based on market cap. But if you'd like to take a more even view, you can turn on square mode, which is essentially everybody gets the same size. And this is sort of the equivalent of looking at equal weight ETF instead of a market weighted ETF. And there again, you can get a view for how the sector is doing in general without worrying that Amazon's the only thing holding up this sector, or Apple. We'll go back to market cap mode. Say we've got our top 5, bottom 5 over here. We can click through and get our mini chart over here. If we don't want that at all, we can hide it completely. We've got our date range up here for what our 20 days in this case represent. If we've got an up arrow here, so we were talking about, or you will be talking about after myself, this drill up, drill down. We can do the same thing here. So we can go up a level and look at the sectors as an average over a time period. And if you'd like to think of it this way, you can, I know Tom looks at the sector summary table all the time. Well, this is sort of a different visualization of the sector summary table. This is a 1 month view, and we can see based on color instead of ranking in the table and our green or red bars, how everybody's doing. Where it differs is that we can make slight changes to the dates here that we can't make in the sectors table. So we can change this, say, well, I don't want to know the past month from today. I want to know the past month from 4 days ago. Or for some reason, maybe I only want to know 18 days. So this is a little bit more flexible than, say, a markets or a sector summary page. And we can tweak it and dial it in a little bit more. We can go back down by either clicking the down button or just by double clicking. And if we want to go down again, we can double click and just take the industry or the sector by itself. And we can go back up to the full view of this S&P 500. We've got a number of options here. We've got the Canadian S&P. We've got a few different, our market summary page. If you're familiar with that, we've broken those down into a market carpet. And then we've got a few different groups of mutual funds here. So we'll go back to our S&P 500. And by default, we do price because everybody's pretty familiar with the concept of price change over time. But we have a whole bunch of other things you can use here. We can do the scooter. If you're into the scooters, we can, again, stretch our range. This will be the scooter change over time. But we can also, by clicking this delta here, toggle between the change over the 16-day period that I've got down here. Or we can go in just to an absolute mode. You'll notice in absolute mode, the date range button down here changes to essentially 0. So we're looking at a static. What is the current scooter for all of these particular items? Again, we can scroll through time, but it's a single data point of what is the scooter on that day versus the scooter range. We've got number of days up, days down. We've got all sorts of other technical indicators here. The RSI. Again, you can switch between absolute and the change over a period of time. Full stochastics. Again, most people are familiar with price. Also, if we'd like to go a little bit bigger, we can hit the full screen mode. That's useful presentations and whatnot. You can toggle that by this square at the bottom. And that's pretty much most of the features for the market carpet. What we'll do next is go to show you how you can look at your own. So if we go to back to the members, you can scroll down to your chart lists. And I created one earlier today that's the Dow Jones Industries, all of those DJUS symbols that Tom is looking at quite frequently. We can do a market carpet of those. And here you'll notice there is just one level. We don't have the ability in our chart lists to tier things, to create subgroups within a list. So everything here is going to be flat. So there's no ability to go up or down. And we're looking pretty much just at price here. So, but we get the same options. We've got our top 5 and bottom 5 over the last 2 days, but we can stretch this out. This particular one is great for noticing industries that they're doing quite well. This is the equivalent of if you go to the industry summary page. This is sort of a 30,000 foot view heat map of those industries. So you can again take your time period to whatever you'd like and roll it over time. Again, some people also use this as a screener. It's not necessarily the same as the scan engine, but you can see that if you were, say, looking for what's an area that I really want to be involved in or don't want to be involved in, over the last several days, we can see gambling is up a fair amount. We don't really want to stay in this industry. It's been doing fairly poorly. So we can use this view to sort of get an idea of where the really hot areas are and what the really cold areas are in the market. And that's pretty much an overview of the market carpet.
Yeah, Bill?
Yes.
You kind of led right into our next segment, which we'll get into in a little bit on drill down. But I find it kind of interesting. I mean, we didn't discuss this at all, but I am going to be taking a look at the gambling stocks. And so this is another way for folks to just kind of get a sense of what's taking place in the market. I mean, we've had Julius de Kempenaar on here. He's talked about the RRG. I know Aaron uses the RRG quite a bit here on the show. That's one way to look at rotation.
Right.
I think MarketCarpets another great example of how you can look at rotation. I use relative ratios a lot of times where I can physically see the chart, in comparing one sector or one industry group relative to another, that type of thing.
Yes.
And then, of course, we have scooters, which can help, kind of streamline the process of finding some of the best performing stocks or groups relative to the others. And so I think the market carpet, this is an area of stock charts, I'll be honest, I haven't really used a whole lot, but I liked getting that refresher because it does reinforce another way to use stock charts to be able to identify relative strength and weakness over various time frames, as you pointed out. And the thing I didn't realize you could do, the one new thing that you just taught me, is that you can do it on a equal weighted basis. I didn't realize that you could do that by looking at, say, a particular sector. You could go within there and just check out on an equal weighted basis. So you don't have the big market cap squares, but you can actually see all of those little smaller market cap stocks that you really couldn't see based on market caps. All of a sudden with equal weight, they appear, and you can get a much better sense of the breadth within a sector of what's actually performing well over a certain period. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, market carpet isn't, as our poll suggested, it's not a lot of people have seen it or have used it. But it's like I say, it's another tool. Some people, if you're more into a visualization kind of visualizations help you better than, say, looking at tables like the sector summary tables or the market summary tables. This can be a great way to get a lot of information very quickly, and it's customizable. I think we go out to 60 days is our maximum. So some of that's about a quarter. So the summary tables will take you back further, 6 months or a year or possibly longer on other areas within the individual charts, of course. But this is a very nice. It's got a lot of interesting features as to how to quickly see how something's doing, and like you say, drill into where you want to spend a little bit more effort and time.
Mm-hmm. I liked your comment about being a heat map, because that to me is kind of what it seems like, what it feels like, where you can look at it. And of course, the dark green tells you what's really working, and the dark red tells you what's really isn't working.
Right.
And, I mean, if you're a value investor, you may want to look at some of these that are deep red. But if you're more of a momentum trader, then of course you're more interested in stocks that are actually have been performing well and maybe are those dark or lighter green areas.
And I didn't go through all of them, but we have tons of different color schemes ranging from the mild to the hideous. And
that would be hideous right there.
Yeah, some of them a little bit too strong for my eyes, but but there's a number of different color variations there, of course, and but it's the same general concept, that it's sort of a continuum from the high end to the low end, and it's just a way to quick. And I know that you're very focused on industries, so you can create these chart lists of particular. You can create your own chart list for the sectors or the industries. So you can create some stock chart lists and then use this. One of the chart lists that I have is a list of, say, 100 of the top ETFs. Same sort of thing. This is an interesting one from the standpoint of just which sectors and industries, but I can't buy any of these things directly because they're just indexes. So it's interesting to say create a chart list with, whatever, 150, whatever ETFs that cover various sectors and industries and groupings, and use a market carpet on those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was playing around with this while you were talking, but I just looked at my NASDAQ 100 chart list. So I've got all 100 NASDAQ stocks, NASDAQ 100 stocks in there, and just pulled it back to look, say, at the last, 3 days, and just to get a sense of what's been leading. And of course, Seagate Technology comes up, which is up over 2%. Adobe Systems, which reported earnings not too long ago, very strong earnings, up 1.95%. But of course, bottom five, Facebook's right up there, minus 10%. So it's another way quickly, if you have a favorite index or you have a chart list that you've put together with your own stocks, could be stocks you own, it could be stocks that you're just looking at, like a watch list. But being able to view them in MarketCarpet, it could be a time saver for some, depending on how you like to visualize things. Really good. All right. Were there any questions that you saw, Aaron, in the room?
Let's see. I'm looking, and could you move your mic just a little closer, because you're a little softer than Bill and probably me.
Oh wow, is that better?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Great.
All right.
I just shoved it in my mouth. So.
So okay, the question. I think there's a couple of questions here, but I'm not sure if you kind of answered them. On the market carpet, are the days actual days or market days?
They're all market days.
That's what I thought. And I think that's how I answered it in the chat room.
Mm-hmm.
How do market carpets rank the industries with scooters in the market carpet section? So they were curious how you do that with the scooters.
Okay, we'll go back here.
And then the colors, just, maybe a review of the colors and.
Sure. Go a little bit bigger here. Actually, we'll bring you there. Okay, so we'll go scooters. So the first view within the scooter is the amount of change of the scooter over the time period. So here we can see that Boeing went from an 89.2 scooter up to a 92.2. So it's a net change of +3 over the last 2 days. So it's been reasonably strong. Our top scooter, if I can, here we go, Dover went up 14. So this shows us the big scooter movers. We don't get a sense of the price from here because, of course, scooters are all relative. So it may mean that everybody else has gone down, but Dover went up a little bit. But if everybody else goes down quite a bit, it may have a large scooter. So it's often nice to look at scooter, but then you really do have to look at the chart. You can see over here on our mini chart when we click it that, yes, in the last couple of days, this thing has shot up. It's been quite volatile, but it's shot up and it's broken above this recent high. Still not up next to that high, but you can kind of get a view for what the scooter's been doing when looking at this little mini chart. There's our friend Facebook, is the winner of the down scooter over the last couple of days. And then we can drag this out and again move it wherever we like. The color scheme in this one is basically from dark green to dark red. The white is sort of flat. It's going to be very close to 0. And as you get slightly more green into the heavy green, you'll be going up the upscale, and then these slightly red variations leading all the way to the dark red for the most extreme on the downside.
And the sizes of the boxes are?
Those are still market cap.
Market cap. Okay.
Even if you're looking at the scooter, it's still the market cap. But of course, you can, like I said, we can switch that to square mode and then do this. So this is another, we talked about being a different view than the summary table. This is a different view of the scooter table. So if you look at the large cap scooter summary table, that's essentially what you're seeing here in just slightly different format.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then the final question, I think, was, can you set up your own default setting for the MarketCarpets? Is that a matter of...
Not yet. This will reset every time. So if you find this little info box following you everywhere kind of annoying and you wanted to permanently fix it over here, it switches every time you come back. So we haven't got this sticky yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think that was the majority of them there. I think we got them.
Great.
Awesome. Very good job, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, guys.